Rome was one of the architectural glories of Constantinople. But in 532 AD, it would also become the site of one of the most brutal acts of an emperor against his people. One day in early January, Justinian, by now wildly unpopular thanks to his harsh policies and heavy taxes, appeared before a raucous crowd at the Hippodrome.
All of a sudden they came together, and they came together against the emperor. The ceremonial political center of the empire was right there, and you had tens of thousands of people opposed to the emperor right at the core of the empire.
The Blues and the Greens weren't like the Jets and the Sharks. They were factions that ran all the way from street thugs right up the political animal to the aristocracy. So when thousands and thousands of both Blues and Greens stormed the Hippodrome screaming, "Nika, Nika, win, win," against these horrible taxes, it would have been like both Republicans and Democrats storming the Super Bowl screaming about the same thing, which may not be a bad idea. The sad news is it turned into a riot, and the riot turned into mayhem, and a week later, a third of the city lay in ashes. Justinian was so scared he was about to pack his bags and split. But thank goodness for a strong woman.
He was all prepared to get on a ship and clear off to the Asian side of the Bosporus, but the Empress Theodora, who started life as an actress stroke prostitute, said, "I've got this far, I'm not giving up now, you know, stay and fight." So he did.
Theodora's words convinced Justinian, and his response would be calculated and horrifying. He dispatched his generals to gather a force and march to the Hippodrome.
The conclusion of the Nika riot is one of these events of biblical proportion. Justinian calls the rebels to meet in the Hippodrome, suggesting that he may compromise with them. But in fact, he gets them into the Hippodrome, closes the gates, and they are massacred by the imperial troops.
Within minutes, all the rebels within its walls had been systematically slaughtered. The center of Constantinople's public life had become the killing grounds for an estimated 30,000 people.
He was an approachable and gentle man who could, with a quiet voice, order the murder of thousands of people.
The capital lay in ruins, but in the ashes, Justinian spied opportunity. Now, he would re-engineer an everlasting legacy in the name of absolute power, his own. From the ruins of Constantinople would rise one of the world's most magnificent churches that would become the center for a new religion and a monument to Byzantine engineering. Legend says that a Byzantine princess who married an Italian nobleman in the 11th century introduced the table fork to Europe. 532 AD. Emperor Justinian has just survived the Nika riots, but the heart of the Byzantine Empire lay in ruins. Re-energized, Justinian would reassert his power and rebuild the capital in the name of God and himself.
What Justinian did after his imperial army put down the riot was to immediately begin to refurbish the city and proclaim to the citizens that he was in control and that everything was right in the Roman Empire.
Now, we remember Justinian not because he was ruthless, but we remember the period of Justinian because he has left us such an incredible architectural legacy.
Justinian's first priority was to rebuild the city's main cathedral, called the Church of Holy Wisdom. We know it today as the Hagia Sophia. Justinian appointed two Byzantine architects, Isidorus and Anthemius, to design the church. Both were professors of mathematics and physics, skilled in theory, but with no real construction experience.
The architects of Hagia Sophia were not the standard architects of the day. They, for better or worse, were professors. We professors sometimes don't have the most sound practical knowledge.
But the far-sighted Justinian gave them a free hand with only two demands: build it as quickly as possible and make it unlike anything else on Earth. Construction began a scant 6 weeks after the Nika riots.
It took years to put together building teams to bring together all of the building materials that were needed for a great project in the empire. Justinian did it practically instantly.
Isidorus and Anthemius's design for the cathedral was revolutionary in concept and unprecedented in scale. They set out to create the largest dome ever built, 100 feet across. They began by using an architectural device first attempted by the Romans, but never fully achieved. It was called the pendentive. The first step, construct 4 massive arches on which the dome would rest. Next, the pendentives, rounded triangles that connect the dome's circular base to the square base below and distribute its weight evenly among the 4 arches. By adding smaller semi-domes, an even larger area would be created. Using pendentives, Justinian's architects were able to construct a gigantic dome that appears to hover in midair. The dome rises 184 feet, 30 feet taller than the Statue of Liberty. The nave over which the dome hung would be a massive open space measuring 229 feet by 245 feet.
There were 100 teams of workmen, each with 100 men, with half of them working on the north side of the building, half of them working on the south side of the building, and competing to create the great building.
A church of unprecedented proportions grew up magically, almost magically, faster than any kind of construction at that time on that scale.
Hagia Sophia was dedicated in 537 AD, less than 6 years after the first stones were laid.
Justinian was very proud of his church, as he should be. It was a great idea. It was a great conceptual plan. The implementation of that plan, the actual structure, was risky.
A more experienced or pragmatic builder would have seen that trying to build a dome of this size with the materials given in a short amount of time would have been dicey at best. Before the construction was even finished, the 4 piers hold up the arches started to buckle and collapse. 20 years later, an earthquake happens, boom, whole dome comes in. Now, Isidorus the Younger, the nephew of the original Isidorus that built it, addressed the flaws in the dome, had to reconstruct it. One of the flaws, most important one, is that he raised the pitch of the dome because more vertical load of a higher dome will drive the weight into the ground, which is good support. A short, squatty dome with horizontal load drive the weight sideways, and kaboom, the dome falls in. So Isidorus raises the dome 21 feet, boom, and voila, you got the dome you see today.
Hagia Sophia was known for more than just its novel design. Even the columns were elaborately adorned with monograms of the emperor and his empress.
We are never allowed to forget that this is the great achievement of Justinian and Theodora.
Emperor Justinian had created a centerpiece for Christianity and further solidified Constantinople as the capital of the Christian world.
He got an architect that was going to make a grand statement, and a grand statement was made. The largest church in Christendom, the greatest dome space in the world until the Renaissance. He got a building that dwarfed any of the great baths of ancient Rome or any of the great temples of the ancient world.
By the end of his reign, the Byzantine Empire had grown to its greatest size, encompassing Syria and Palestine, Asia Minor, Italy, Greece, and southward throughout North Africa and